Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be right now. I'm Dr. Monica, the T4 Trials, Triumphs, Truths, and Tears Summit visionary and coordinator. I think I scheduled to go live at 11, but I am here with my good friend who's also a speaker, Mr. Eric Cannon. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I'm good. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm just going to be on here. We're just going to be on here for a few minutes just to get people to be introduced to you, and we want to know why you tell people to attend the summit. Why did you say yes to be a speaker, and what do you expect for them to gain from attending?
Well, I think it's very, very important to, it's very therapeutic to talk to people about, things that you've been through, and particularly men. And, when you first asked me, I was kind of apprehensive and I said, I don't know. I don't know. But then, reflecting back on everything that I've been through, and it's very, very important to ask for help. I saw this as a way to you know it was very, very therapeutic. Again, to speak to talk about what you've been through. So that's one of the reasons why. That's the key reason why I decided.
Okay. And what do you expect for people to get from listening to your message?
I expect people to get a lot. Again, we live with these expectations in our lives, these hidden expectations, and when reality sets in, or when reality hits, we try to fit the circumstances of reality into those expectations, and that's where the conflict lies with a lot of us. So I've always gone by the mantra that expect nothing and accept everything.
Mhm. Yeah, good point. And you and I, we go back like 40 years, and um, you know, we are so direct and raw and real, and that's what I love about you. You keep it real, and I think we've always connected. Just so the audience know, Eric and I have been friends probably for well over about 40 years now, and I
Right.
met his late wife in college, and we were just really good friends.
Oh yeah.
And she passed, and she was actually in my wedding.
Yes.
So I am just honored that he's speaking. And if you looked on our website and heard a little bit of life, know his wife passed. But what Eric, I'm not sure if he remembers this, but I'm gonna bring it to his remember. Don't cry. But we were talking, and the day before your wife passed, I was there, and I
Mhm.
was in the house, and she grabbed my arm, and she grabbed me with such force, and she said, don't, she told me to keep in touch with the family. She says, stay close to them. And I never forget that. And when I saw her that day, she had just aged so much. She was
Yeah.
in so much pain at
Right.
that time.
Mhm.
And I want to say that that may have been a Friday or a Friday. That Saturday, I went to an event that my dissertation chairperson invited me to. And I prayed that day. I said, Lord, if you're not going to heal Joy, can you just take her today? Because she was just gone. You called me or you text me, I think call me at 11 o'clock or whatever that night was
Right.
that day, and she passed.
Yeah.
And I was joyful, and I'm saying that because we look at death so differently. And I was joyful because she was out of her pain. Now,
Right.
am I glad she's gone? Absolutely not. But if that's how she had to live,
Hmm.
I wanted her to leave. I really did. So, and then also release the stress off of you and the family and the kids. And it was, the kids were small. I didn't want them to be left alone. But again, who wants to live like that?
Right.
So I am so grateful for that experience. And then my dissertation chair, I didn't know she had cancer and passed, you know,
Wow.
which was really strange in that whole thing. So I'm looking at this. I just see how things work together. So
Mhm.
anyway, for those who are on the fence about attending this T4 Trials, Triumphs, Truth, and Tears Summit, we have three male speakers, men, powerful, that are delivering real, raw truths. I encourage you to get your tickets. Go over to drmonicajackson.com, T4 Summit, and purchase your tickets today. because it's so necessary. I think we all wish we had somebody who spoke truth. I mean, real truth, uncut truth, because that's what sets us free, and that's the path to um, peace and joy.
I agree.
So, any parting words before we sign off, Eric?
Well, I mean, you certainly, you granted her wish, because even the day after she passed away, I was, you knew how I was. I mean, I went to the funeral home, and they had me buying everything. And I was just so distraught,
Yes,
and you were there. I mean, from day one, and every day, or every year, 3 kids. You're always in contact with the kids, and I really, really, I truly appreciate that.
yes.
Yeah.
And I thank you because, like I said, she was a very good friend. And, when
Hmm.
she told me that, I didn't expect for her to pass, but when she said that, and I remember that moment, I said, I need to make sure that I kept in touch with you guys at
Yeah.
all costs. Now, we don't see each other often. We got to get together though.
Right.
But,
Right.
because we don't have real people that we like to
Yeah.
be around,
Right. You're absolutely
and
right.
you know, I don't have real people that I like being around. And I just say,
Right.
you keep it real. So we gotta
Right.
connect. We gotta get
Right.
together, go out
It's
for a
it's
drink or
hey,
something.
it's not about thoughts and prayers all the time.
Okay. Look,
Sometimes you gotta roll up your sleeves and get to it, because I've
yes,
I've had
you're
people
right.
in my life that it's always, oh, we're praying for you, we're praying for you, we're praying for you, but it's like, okay, I just, you need practical, hands-on intervention
Correct.
a lot of times.
Correct.
So
And I know, we both have had some issues with church hurt, and everybody knows my topic is going to be about family wounds and church wounds.
right.
And these are things that we need to talk about. And the
Hmm.
reason why we need to talk about it is because it's real.
It's
And
true.
I have found who my real friends are. And when here's something about people only accept you if you align with their narratives
Right.
and if you don't rock the boat. As
Hmm.
long as you believe what they believe, do as they do, they love you dearly. But
Right.
as soon as you start questioning or bucking the system or thinking with this thing that God gave us, He
Hmm.
gave us our mental capacities to think.
Right.
That's when people start to pull away from you.
Hmm.
And I'm going to say this: I believe in God, just like you believe in God. I just don't believe in the church.
Right. Right. You're
Big
right.
difference. That took a lot for me to say that. It took a long time for me to even admit that because it's not nice. It's not right to say.
Right.
It's not right to say. But who said that's not right? Who taught us that's not right? There's a lot of control and
Mhm.
manipulation and deceit in our beliefs.
It's true.
And we have to get to a point of being authentic and knowing ourselves. You will when life happens, that's when you start bucking the system.
That's
And
right.
that's when you become real, true
Right.
to yourself. I mean, we've known each other, like I said, 40 years. And you literally, like you said, you actually walked through and did things and planned your life the way you thought the world taught you,
Hmm.
what you thought to do. Go to
Right.
college, get married, have these kids, da 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 da. And
Right.
then what happened? And
Mm.
you didn't discover who you really genuinely were and what was important to you until life happened.
Right. That's
you
true.
know so I think we need to start flipping the script as far as raising children. Let's tell them to be themselves. Let's
Right.
teach them to be themselves, whatever and whoever that is, and stop allowing the world to dictate and say what's right and wrong about how whoever lives the way their truth.
It's funny how you say that, because my kids, have educated me. They've seen everything that I've gone through,
Yes,
and how I've adjusted my life, and my position now towards the church or the churches.
yes,
And they're telling me that, Dad, this isn't, something's not right here. We don't believe in all of this stuff. We believe in God,
correct.
but there is there's things just don't feel right with me. And I'm 100% in support of them. I mean, they're great kids.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I think we have to experience, we have to go through it in
Yes.
order to come to the realization that, what you spoke of.
Correct.
It's very, very important. We just can't just sit in a room and just, think these things up. We have to experience it. There's got to be a catalyst to make
Yes.
us flip that switch
Yes.
to really understand it.
Correct. Hi, Jacqueline Cox. I see you on joining us. Good morning, beautiful. And we're gonna continue this just a little bit longer because I think it's so powerful to have a man on here talking about this. And I want to say this because I was so wounded in the church, just like you were.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much divisiveness
Oh my
teachings
goodness.
in the church that
Mm-hmm.
we think is unifying. And if people sit back and think about all of the dividing and divisive things inside of the church, and I'm
Right.
not putting the church down per se, what I'm saying is that what we experience and what we live is not what's being taught. In other words, you're talking the talk, but not walking the walk.
Right.
Where is the love?
Right.
Eric, I want you to touch on something if you don't mind. You talked about, or you and I talked offline about being in the church and someone came to your job.
Oh, yes.
Talk about that situation,
Okay.
please.
First of all, let's bring this. When I say church, I'm necessarily organized religion because, again, I grew up Catholic. My late wife, grew up Christian Scientist, and we went to about, I don't know, about 4 or 5 different denominational faith-based churches, and it's basically the same thing all across the board. So it's that organized religion where the people in and of themselves, the parishioners, we got along with great, but it's that leadership. They have that motive. It's a business. Um, Years ago, I was working in Pasadena. I was a fund manager, and I wanted to take a class to get a designation. And this designation required, um, it was 3 exams for 7 years. It was a really big exam that I needed to take. So I wanted to go to a class at USC to prepare for the first exam. Unfortunately, that exam or that class was on a Wednesday night. Wednesday night, we had our midweek service. Okay. So I couldn't miss midweek service. I had to go to midweek service. So I couldn't go to this class. But I said, okay, wait a minute. There is what is called a Kids Kingdom midweek service where parents would volunteer to watch the kids while people went to church. So I said, well, you know what? I'll become a volunteer to watch the kids on that Wednesday night. And then I had someone replace me. I said, hey, can you take my spot in Kids Kingdom? They're, yeah, not a problem. So it allowed me some free time to go to this. That's the length that I had to go to get an approval to take a class, okay, on a Wednesday night to miss midweek service. Pastor found out. Pastor drove up to Pasadena,
To
took
your
me out
job.
to my job, took me out to lunch. I knew what he was there for. I knew exactly, but I played dumb. I said, hey, let's go. Yeah, so I heard you're taking this class. Is it required? I go, no, it's not required. It's just a designation that I'd like to have, increase my marquee value in my job. And he goes, well, what about service? I go, well, I'm not, someone else is taking my place in Kids Kingdom. So, well, bro, that's unacceptable. I forbid you to do this. You forbid me to do this.
Yes.
So that made me even more determined to
Yes.
do this. And I came home to my wife and I said, this is what happened. Okay. And again, she was a sweet woman. My wife was an angel, and she knew what was going on. And she says, yeah, no, no. And she basically backed me up.
Yes.
And she told them, she goes, the harder that you push him, the harder that the more he's falling away, the more that he's going away.
Correct. And that's one thing. People push when it comes to church, and then they push upon and prey upon people who don't have the backbone to say no. And
Right.
then when you have the backbone to say no, you're the problem.
Right.
You're the
Yeah.
problem. So,
Yeah.
again, I hope people get to their own truth, live your own truth, Stop living in other people's expectations. Anybody who hearing me speak, you hear me say, I don't have any expectations of anyone. I have requirements, and the requirements are what I can control. I have no expectation because I have no control over what other people do. But the requirements I have, these are my boundaries and my space. I have full control over that.
Correct.
So, Eric, I just want to thank you for being a summit speaker and coming on and speaking live with us. I hope this little insight and hearing Eric Cannon, who's our T4 Trials, Triumphs, Truths, and Tears Summit speaker, help you to go over and purchase your tickets. Again, you can purchase those tickets at drmonicajackson.com/T4 Summit. They're only $79. Many of the speakers are authors. You also know that you can select 2 books as part of your registration. That's included. You'll also receive a resource directory, which has all of the speakers' contact information. So again, don't miss this summit. It's time to release the pain and live with joy and peace. Thank you, Eric, again. Have an amazing day.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.